It's an honor to introduce Mr. Cramer. The idea behind this session is really one of informality. Mr. Cramer has some opening remarks, and then we're just going to open the floor for questions. And this will be your opportunity to ask questions, seek advice, or whatever you would like to do. Everyone, please, let's give a warm welcome to Ray Cramer.
Where's my coffee?
Is there a TA in the house?
Where are my grad students now? You know, that's what I want to know. Where are they now? Yeah, I've been running since 7 o'clock this morning, and just finished a concert with the Avon High School Brass Choir and their saxophone ensemble, which were phenomenal. They did a fantastic job. I don't know if you saw the performance or not, but it was really fun. And yesterday I spent all day. I had another session and another rehearsal and a concert with the Japanese band last night, which was. Then we had a party afterwards. They loved to party. And I don't know, about midnight when I got back to the room last night. So, didn't y'all get the memo? I mean, this was a formal occasion. Come on. Well, you know, when Mark asked me to do this and said it's going to be for all the graduate students, I thought, man, I don't get to face grad students again, you know. But as far as opening remarks are concerned, just a show of hands here, how many of you are looking for college teaching positions when you finish up? Raise the hands. That's what I thought. And how many listings have you seen this year? No, gambate kudasai, as they say in Japan. No. I think it's fantastic that, and I like to ask another question. How many of you have had public school experience for longer than 3 years? Can I see your hands? That's fantastic too. I think that's really important. What maybe I'd like to just open a couple of comments this morning. And he asked me specifically, he says, you don't need to prepare anything. He said, you're going to ask me questions and I'll probably not have an answer, but that's okay. I'll fake it. But opening remarks, I'd like to just say that if I had to go back and do everything again that I've done in my X number of years that I've been involved in teaching, and I still consider myself, I'm still teaching today. In addition to the public school in the Indiana 36 years, I've also been going to Japan for the last 26 years. And I still feel like I'm teaching there in a different way. So this is about my 55th year of being involved in education in one way or another. And you're probably going in your mind, why would he want to do that? And my answer would be, if I had to go back and do it all again, I wouldn't change a thing. I would do it exactly the same way. I was fortunate. I had some great teachers. I had some great public school teachers who honestly probably saved my life, because I started music when I was in 6th grade. I went to a really rural elementary school with just 3 grades in one room and 3 grades in the other room, just a 2-room school. And I don't even remember who came to the school in my 6th grade year, but somebody came to the school with a few instruments in their hands, and I think they tried to demonstrate some things, you know, noodle a few flute and clarinet and the trumpet and trombone, and the only thing the person could do on trombone was play a glissando. And I was enamored by the glissando. I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. And so when he started asking kids, you know, what do you want to play, you know, he went through all the popular instruments first. Who wants to play trumpet? Who wants to play clarinet, flute? And hands were going up all over the place. And he said, who wants to play trombone? And I looked around the room. Nobody put their hand up. So I put my hand up, and I thought, man, I can be first chair right off the bat. But anyway, I did start on trombone, and my father, he was totally against it because it meant he was going to have to sell 2 pigs to buy the horn, which he did. And I played for about 6 months and quit. Between my end of my 6th grade year and my junior high experience starting in 7th grade. And you don't need to come to my session this afternoon because I'm going to share this again this afternoon, but it's really important to me, and that is the fact that middle of the summer, there's a knock on our front door. Now remember, you know, way in the sticks. And I looked out through the front window and I saw this tall person standing there. Had no idea who it was. And so I opened the door and he introduced himself, says, "I'm the new band director in your district." And I go, "Yeah." He said, "How come you didn't sign up for junior high band?" And right away, man, the guilt just hit me. I'm bad. I don't like to practice. I'm terrible. And he said, "Well, you still have your horn?" And my dad goes, "Yeah, it's in the closet," right away. And so he said, "Well, let's have a lesson right now." So he proceeded to get his trombone out of the car, and I got my trombone. And in the next 40 minutes, I was having more fun and sounding better than what I had done before. And he instilled something in me that I saw was very special. And obviously, I joined the band. And everything changed after that, because everything was about trombone and band and football. And I was going to be a professional football player. That's true. I really was. And I was an all-state player in this little school. I was honorable mention all-state in the state of Illinois. Honorable mention. But the school, you know, I was playing at 6'4" and 240 at the time. Okay. But so it was a flip of the coin. Did I want to be a coach? Do I want to go that route, or did I want to go into music? And I figured that all the people where I went to school at Western Illinois, they had a fantastic football team, and they were 6'4" and 240, 280. And I thought, you know what? Trombone is a lot safer, and it's a lot more fun. And so that was my choice. We all have to make choices. You know, you've obviously made choices long before, you know, where you are right now. And you made choices about what you wanted to do or what you want to do in the future. And my advice to you is the fact that don't give up your idea about what you want to do. Even if you start searching for a job and just that job doesn't show up immediately in your first search, don't give up. And I used to tell the grad students, I said, look, you know, whether you think this job is something you want to do or not, you apply for it anyway. It only costs you X number of postage stamps to send your material in and see what happens. The important thing is you need to get an interview, because you're not going to get the job without an interview. And so whatever you have to do, you know, make yourself known. Put your name out to those jobs, even if they're jobs that you are not sure that you really want. The important thing is to go and to interview. Sometimes you have to just go through the process of finding out what are the things that people are looking for in the interview process that's going to allow me to get offered the job. So you get offered the job? Great, fantastic. Then you can make a decision. If you don't get offered a job, there's no decision to make. There's no decision. So I say just keep sending material out. Get your name out to lots of schools. What you don't realize is that a lot of schools call other schools that have job openings as well. And they ask the question, hey, who's applied for your job? You know, can you give me some names? I mean, maybe there's some. It happens, by the way. That happens. So if you have your name in a couple, 3 stacks, your chances are a lot better. But just keep following your dream. You want to be a college band director? Fantastic. I wanted to be a college band director. I didn't think about that until I was about maybe 24 or 25. I mean, when you spend 1 year in Bardolph, Illinois, conducting a 16-piece band with 2 flutes, 2 saxophones, 2 trombones, 1 baritone, 1 tuba, and 6 drummers. If you notice, there are a few instruments missing there. But that was a great experience. And but I realized early in my teaching career that I had people in the profession that I looked up to, icons. You know, icons today. Yeah, I never quite liked that term. Even with people sometimes say, "Oh, you're an icon." You know, most icons are dead. You know, I'm just glad to still be standing. But the name that stuck out to me was John Painter at Northwestern University. I met John Painter when I was a graduate student at the University of Iowa. And he brought the Northwestern Marching Band to play at Iowa. And enthusiastic, and I was very impressed by him. And then I got to know John in terms of what he had done professionally, whatever. And the thing that stuck in my mind was that John Painter became director of bands at Northwestern University when he was 28 years old. 28. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be a college band director by age 28? So I started thinking about that at age 24. And I thought, nah, it ain't gonna happen. I got the associate job at Indiana when I was 28. Of course, I was 29 2 weeks later, but that's okay. That's all right. I was still 28 when I got the job. I was still 28. But it's a matter of just being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, preparing yourself in a very special way, and it will happen for all of you. It will happen for all of you. I'm confident it will. But I've never been sorry. It's been a fantastic profession. I can't think of a better profession to be involved in than what it has been for the last umpteen years. So with that, I'm going to have a sip of water and just, you can think about what you want to ask me, okay? Mark? How's the new building coming, by the way?
What new building?
Oh, that one that's all glass in the middle of downtown Iowa City.
We've got another semester. So we're a little bit excited.
Talk about a person going into a job at exactly the wrong time. The worst flood in the last 500 years wiped out the entire School of Music and the concert hall and everything. And he can't even get into town because roads are flooded. And isn't that right? Yeah. Could not. And his wife is looking at him going, Mark, what did you do? Yes. And Myron Welsh is going, man, I left at the right time, you know.
Just wish you had turned off the water faucet.
That's right, that's right. So anyway, the floor is open. You know, I'm happy to take anything.
Morning, Mr. Cramer.
Good morning.
Can you talk about how you began your association with the Midwest Clinic and became a member of the board?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. The Midwest Clinic has always been really important to me. I was still in undergraduate school when I came to my first clinic. That was many years before you were all born. My first clinic was in 1960, and I was a junior in undergrad school. And I heard the Castech High School Band under Harry Beecham. I heard the Edina Morningside Band from Minnesota with a violin, a single violin, sitting in the middle of the flute section, and 2 fiberglass sousaphones in the back row with 2 upright concert sousaphones. And both of those bands just blew me away. Oh, also in that same program was the Joliet Grade School Band with kids that sit in chairs like this and their feet would not touch the floor. And the low brass is blowing my head off on the Meister singers, these little tots, 6 years, 6th grade. And I thought at the time, what did I get in this profession for? No, I sat there with goosebumps. And my purpose, the Midwest Clinic, was that when I went to concerts, I had to get as close to the front as possible. If I could get in the front row, I'd be in the front row. If I couldn't get in the front, I'd be in the second row. But I had to be really close, not because I wanted to hear or see the band so well, because during those years in the Sherman House, that's where I started going. It's no longer there, the Sherman House, but in the middle of a concert, the photographer would be in the back of the auditorium. And he'd say, the announcer, Ray Dvorak from Wisconsin, would stand up and say, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to take a picture. Would everybody turn around and look at the camera in the back? And of course, he would be focused to the front of the stage on the band and the people that are sitting in row 1 and 2. And I thought, man, I'm going to be in the picture. But no, I wanted to be as close as I could because of the presence of the ensembles and because of what I watched the conductors doing and the interaction that they had with their students. And I thought, okay, so this is what's possible with young students. This is what's possible. I wasn't sure of that until then. I just wasn't sure, even though I had a great high school experience. So that just brought me back every year. Then there were great clinics of the greatest teachers in every area. And I would sit there and I would listen to a clarinet clinic and a flute clinic. And I mean, I was like a sponge. I soaked it in. But I just went every single year. In all of these years, from 1960 to 2015, I've only missed 3 clinics. One of those, my daughter was in the hospital, and 2 times I was teaching in Japan in the fall. And those are the only times that I've missed the clinic. And you know what? I still learn from this clinic. So it's been important to me. Educationally, it was strong for me. And how I became a member of the board, I was asked to present a clinic. I think John Painter called me up and said, we want to like to have a clinic, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, fine. I said, what would you like? He said, no, you just choose the topic, whatever you want to do. And this was in the 1990 clinic. No, I take that back. It was the 1989 clinic. In December. And I did this presentation called Podium Personality. And I thought there would be I ran off a few copies, 100, 200 people. And this was in the old International Ballroom over in the Hilton, and there was about 1,500 people there who were all complaining about not getting a program. Anyway, so it was after that clinic, I got a call from Barbara Buellman inviting me to be a member of the board in 1990. And so I served with John and Barbara Buellman and the board members at that time. And then, of course, John passed away very suddenly. And then, unfortunately, Barbara passed away a few years later. And I was dumb enough to accept the invitation to become president, which I was for 13 years. And I finally told the board that I had already served 5 years longer than what we allow the President of the United States serve in this country. And that was quite enough. And the thing that's been really wonderful, I stepped down in 2009 was my last year as president, and it's been so much fun to come back and be able to eat regular meals and to greet people and have time to talk with them, and it's just been it's been great. I've enjoyed coming back and just being a member again, an attendee, with my, where's my badge? Anyway, with my badge, to get in, I don't know where it is. But the Midwest has been very important to me for many, many years, and it still is. I still think it's one of the great educational tools that a young teacher can grasp onto. You look through the program, is there anything that's not there that you can't learn something from? Anything in the program. And so I'm a strong supporter. And I want to say one thing about this facility. Starting in about 2003, the Hilton was becoming so crowded that people couldn't get into clinics. There would be people waiting outside to get in the door, and then the people would close the door, and 200 or 300 people would just be really upset. And how many went through the ticket line, you know, to get tickets, you know, oh, you're the A series and you're the B series. Well, nobody liked that. Everybody hated it. So we just outgrew that facility. The same thing that happened at the Sherman House when we were in the Sherman House. So Kelly Josias and myself and a couple other board members started looking around the country, actually, for other sites for the Midwest Clinic to take place. And we actually got, quote, wooed by several towns that would really love to have us come to their thing. But nothing was quite right. Chicago has this special appeal. And so we decided we're not going to move out of it. So then we started looking around Chicago. And we looked at Navy Pier, which has lots of space, but none that was workable for what we needed. The whole north end of the Miracle Mile, with all the hotels that are right there together, they wanted us, they wined us and dined the entire board for a weekend. You know, they even met us with a Dixieland band, and you know, and it was great. I mean, it was wonderful, but it didn't have all the ingredients for what we needed and what the clinic needed. So this facility was being built. And so even before this was done, the entire board took a hard hat tour of this whole new McCormick Place West. And we're all going, wow, look at this space. Look at this, look at this. It's in one roof. You know, we don't have to go down to that hotel or across the street to that hotel or et cetera, et cetera. So then the building was completed and the whole board came back again and took a tour of the facility. It had just opened up, and the first convention was a medical convention, and they had 25,000 people here. So we thought, okay, we see the potential. Then we started looking at the ballrooms and the spaces for the concert performances, and we immediately saw that there was going to be new space for more concert halls, but that wasn't good enough. We wanted to make sure that the halls were going to be better than what the halls were down at the Hilton. So we spent $25,000 for an acoustical engineer to come in and run tests in every single space that we're using. And we had live groups come in and actually play in these spaces for the acoustical engineer. And all the results were better than what we had there. Plus, no more tickets. Everybody can get into a concert. Jazz has its own space. Orchestra has its space. Bands have their space. Chamber groups have their space. So we made the decision to make the move in 2009. So that was the first year, and that was my last year. That's probably a longer answer than what you wanted, but you got it anyway. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you from?
I'm from Minnesota. I'm studying Minnesota. I'm from Fargo, North Dakota originally.
Now wait a minute.
When?
You mentioned Fargo.
Yeah.
I've been to Fargo twice.
Okay.
First time was great. Intercollegiate band, no problem. You know, it was lots of fun, and I guess conducted with North Dakota State and what have you.
Yeah.
And I got home on time. And then I got invited back again to do the intercollegiate band, whatever, in the winter time. And it was okay. Everything went great. Concert was over, and man, everybody left town, whoom, because there was a prediction for a blizzard. My host said, they've been predicting blizzards for the last 5 years. It always misses, goes north, goes south, whatever. He said, no worries. I got back to the motel because I couldn't get out that day. I had to wait for another day to get a flight. 24 inches of snow with 50-mile-an-hour winds. So I enjoyed the motel for another 2 days. My wife made me sign a contract when I got home. You will never go to Fargo again. I missed my granddaughter's birthday. Okay, that's okay. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
With the culture in Asia and how much it's growing and how quickly it's growing. I was just hoping you would talk about your experience in Japan and also where you see the future of kind of these cultures working together and what's realistic for the future of that.
Well, you know, the Asian band culture, and when I say Asian, I'm not just talking about Japan, but what is happening in Thailand, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and of course China is growing and building like crazy. You know, I'll say that the bands are not at the level in China and Taiwan as what they are in some of the other Asian countries, but they're growing and gaining tremendous pace. I've just been in Taiwan last summer actually, and I had been there 3 years prior to that, and the quality that I heard in those 3 years, the difference was amazing. The Japan culture, it has sort of been the trend. So all the directors from these other Asian, the Pacific Rim countries have all been coming to Japan to see what's going on. And in Japan, they have a clinic in May that's called the Japan Band Clinic, the JBC. And it's their Midwest clinic in May. I started going to that clinic back in the mid-90s, and that's when it was held at the Yamaha Resort, which is down in the southern part of Japan, which was fantastic. The concert hall was lousy, but the facilities were fantastic. But now it's moved to Hamamatsu, which has this fantastic new facility built around the Act City Hotel, and they have a major big concert hall and a smaller concert hall, and either one is great. And so the attendance has been growing like crazy, you know, in the last few years. What I see happening is the fact that each year the number of foreign directors that come to that clinic to see what's going on from Taiwan, from China, from Hong Kong, from Thailand, etc., Vietnam, they're coming to the clinic because they want to see what's happening there and how they can build their programs. So it's going to continue to grow at a really steady rate, at a very steady rate. As far as the Japan thing is concerned, maybe the name Paul Yoder, does that name ring a bell to anybody? But Paul Yoder was a big deal in the Midwest Clinic, I mean, back in the 50s. And after World War II, Paul Yoder and Toshio Akiyama were the fathers of the Japan band movement. Those two people, again, sort of reassembled, you know, directors, the interest in bands after World War II, and it just began to build and build and build. It probably didn't gain its largest momentum until the early 60s. And from 1960, mid-60s to the present, it just continues to grow like crazy. Here's a country the size of the state of California. And to think about that they have 20,000 bands in that country. And when I first started going to Japan, there were, just in the city of Tokyo alone, there were 360 corporate bands. 360 corporate bands just in Tokyo. So I'm always impressed. I'd just like to ask a question. When you all give concerts at your various schools that you all go to, you know, what's the attendance like? You know, a few hundred, whatever. You know, am I guessing that right? You know, the thing in Japan, the school I'm associated with, and I've been to other school of music concerts as well. It's the same. They prepare a longer period of time for their concerts than what we do in our country here. And that's okay. They have a specific philosophy of what they do, but they rent the best concert halls in Tokyo. And the thing that impresses me is the fact that, you know, okay, in New York City, how many great concert halls are there in New York City? Two, three, what have you. Every city in Japan every city in Japan, I've not been in a bad concert hall. Even the smallest towns out in the middle of a rice field. In the city of Tokyo alone, there are at least 9 major concert halls. Beautiful, great acoustics. And so when the school puts on a concert at these schools, most of the seating capacity is right at 2,000. Almost every time it's full. Almost every concert is full. And you know what impresses me? When you give your concerts in your schools, how many high school and junior high students come to your concerts? Any? Some? A few? The thing that impresses me about concerts there, when the band concerts are given, I would say that 45% of the audience is high school and junior high school students. And they come in with their backpacks on and their instruments because they're coming directly from school to go to the concert. And most of the concerts begin late afternoon rather than at 8 o'clock at night because nobody wants to come back to a concert after they've gotten off work or out of school. So I'm very impressed by the number of young kids that come to the concert. And if you happen to be playing a tune that maybe their band is working on, as soon as that number comes up in the program, I look out there and the kids are all the other backpacks taking the music out and they're going, "What are you going to show me?" And I think that's very healthy. So I just see that there's going to be a terrific influence in the Asian Rim, the Pacific Rim countries that are going to be continually contributing to what we do here. So far, those were easy. Oh, there's got to be.
You mentioned earlier, and I know. Good morning. Sorry. You talked about this a lot too about teaching. Like you see yourself primarily as a teacher, and I feel like we're all graduate students, and maybe I'm alone in this, but I feel like it would corroborate that most of the emphasis in schools of music, maybe necessarily, is development of musicianship and being the very best musician you can, and really, really studying musicianship. And the teaching side of things is either assumed or, well, you'll get out in the field and you'll develop those skills and all that sort of stuff. And I wonder if you could talk about your impressions of, what sort of combination of musician and teacher, and how can we, as a profession, maybe?
Well, the first thing, is anybody in here that doesn't agree that we're all teachers? We're all teachers, right? And there is teaching that has to go on from the podium. When I was teaching in Parma, Ohio, just outside of Cleveland, our high school hosted the Cleveland Orchestra under Zell 6 times a year. And for me to stand backstage and to watch Zell rehearse the Cleveland Orchestra was worth a doctorate. He had the best musicians probably in the country at the time, and yet the teaching that he did on the podium blew my mind. I thought, whoa, I thought you just get up and wave your stick and magically things happen. But he was constantly teaching in the course of the rehearsal. I don't think we can ever get to the place where we feel like that we don't have to teach. Yes, musicianship obviously is very important, and sharing that with our students and getting into the meat of the music. One of the things I see happening in the public schools which bothers me, contest has become such an issue that it's got to be this, but I see too much just continually working on notes. They've either got Dr. Beat going, or they've got every stand has a metronome on it, every stand has a tuning device on it, and so it's click track, it's the bass sound that's turned up to tune to, and many bands I go in, they have it tuned so loud the kids can't hear themselves anyway. I don't know why they do that, but I would like to see I know that notes are important and you have to get the notes to get this, but I see too many people stop at just note learning and not really getting into what the music is actually saying and what the music is all about. I had it shared with me one time about this whole business of you're in a rehearsal mode and you're preparing the students for a concert, and there's a certain amount of skill that has to go into what happens with the ensemble to get the music where it needs to be. We all understand that. There has to be a certain amount of skill. But I had a colleague one time share with me, he said, look, if I give you a set of plans to make a dresser or a buffet, there you go to the wood shop, do it. And I go over here and I give you the same plans, and you go off and you do your thing. And so you have X amount of time, and you all come back, you bring your product in, you bring your product in. Oh, wait, didn't you have these plans? Yeah, I had to. But this product, there's something about that product that's not the same as what this product is. So why is this product look different? Why is it draw my attention more than this one? It's because you both had the skill of putting it together. You both had the skill to read the plan and put it together, but you added craft. You added artistic craft. And that's the difference. I mean, there has to be a point in the rehearsal process where we combine the skill with the craft and with the artistry, that they blend together just at the right time. And I got to tell you, that's the hardest thing in the world to do. But I think it's important. That's why Fred Fennell, we had him on campus 2 or 3 times, and he would always send me his scores so that I would rehearse the piece exactly the way he wanted it before he got there. And here's what impressed me. Toccata Martial. Been played for years. He'd probably conducted that piece I don't know how many times. But on the score, he dated every time he conducted that piece. And he wrote notes in the margin. And one of the notes that really got my attention was, the next time I do this piece at letter E, I'm going to try this. So every time the performance was fresh. Every single time. And I think that's how we have to approach what we do. So there is artistry that's joined with the skill, the craft with the skill, coming together at the same time. That makes it very exciting. And then the last 10% of that is right here. What the emotion can bring, the spontaneity on the spot, what that can happen on the podium at that time is what it really takes it to new heights. So, anyway, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but those are some thoughts. Okay? Anybody else? Yeah.
Can you talk about 2 or 3 of your favorite masterwork pieces and maybe what you've learned by doing them so many years, what we could learn from them, different performances, takeaways, and why they're special to you?
So you're talking about 55 years ago. May I preface that with something? Okay. When I finished undergraduate school, and when I was in undergrad school, I was taken to a concert by my director for a psychot, who was a graduate of the University of Iowa. He had just gotten his doctorate in composition, but he wanted me to hear the University of Iowa Symphony Band under Fred Ebbs. So he took me to this concert, and I was frankly blown away by the band. I've never heard a more beautiful sounding band. The quality of the artistry of the musicians, the balance, the blend. I thought, I have to go to that school. I have to go to that school. I have to be a part of that program. I want to know how that happened. And so, the other thing that component was that during my undergraduate school, this Forrest Sykott, who had his degree in composition from Iowa, he encouraged me. I sort of had an interest in composition, so I started doing some writing in undergrad school. And I wrote for the marching band, I wrote for some chamber groups, I did arrangements for the wind ensemble, I wrote some original works, and I thought, this is really fun. I loved hearing my pieces played. And so when I applied to the University of Iowa, I sent my compositions to the composition department because I was going to go there and become a composition major like my teacher was at undergrad school. And guess what? I got accepted in composition at the University of Iowa. But I got to the University of Iowa, and I loved playing. So I went into Mr. Ebbs' office and said, I want to be in the marching band. He informed me. He says, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Cramer, but I've already filled all my graduate positions. There are no more graduate positions to be. I said, no, I don't want to be a guy running around with a pole in the marching band field. I said, I want to play. And he looked at me like, aren't you a graduate student? I go, yeah. He said, you want to play in the marching band? Yes. He said, well, I just happened to, I'm going to add 4 bass trombones this year to the marching band. How about bass trombone? I said, great, I'm in. And so I played bass trombone in the marching band. I was first chair in the orchestra that rehearsed on Tuesday and Thursday night. I also played in the symphonic band, which is going on at the same time as the marching band. I also played in the faculty brass quintet. And I joined Old Pop Gower's brass choir and was trying to survive history class and writing. Oh, composition. Philip Bezanson expected every composition major to write 5 minutes of music every week for the lesson. And you know what I discovered really quickly? I had no talent in composition. I wasn't going to make any money in composition, but it did pique an interest in me to approach music in a different vein. And so I've always been a champion of new music as well as standards. And I think because of my background, that's always been the case. When I was teaching in high school, I wrote pieces for some of my chamber ensembles because there wasn't anything published at the time. And I have to tell one short story. I was teaching in Harlan, Iowa. This is out in southwest Iowa, in the middle of the cornfields and rolling hills. No students studied privately with anybody except me. And right before contest, 6 seniors came up to me and said, we want to have a woodwind ensemble to take the contest. And I looked at the instrumentation, and it was a flute, a clarinet, an oboe, an alto saxophone, a bass clarinet, and a contrabass clarinet. And I thought, I don't know of a piece that's written for... And so, you know what I did? I got to thinking. When one of the composers I really loved in school was Lucas Foss. I don't know whether you've ever studied any Lucas Foss compositions, but I thought he was just terrific. And Gunther Schuller was another one. I really locked into some of Gunther Schuller's early works. And Lucas Foss wrote a piece called that was based on popular poems, contemporary poems, and he set it with contemporary music. And one of the pieces, it was a poem, and then there was an interlude for piano, clarinet, what was the other instrument? Oh, cello and piano, or percussion. And they did improvised interludes. It was cool because somebody would play a motive and somebody would answer, and they just kind of developed. So I brought these 6 kids in, and I got my vinyl disc out. You remember those? And anyway, I played this Lucas Foss piece for them. Now, these are untrained musicians, farmers. And I said, what do you think about that? They said, that's cool. Can you write us something like that? I said, no, I can't write like that. But I wrote a 12-tone piece. And the piece is called Dialogue and Discussion. The dialogue was my my 12 tones and the row than I did. And they played, and then the discussion part was improvised. This was in 1964. And so these 6 kids, and we went into contest, and they didn't sit traditionally. They sat in a circle. And they started in with this crushed, very dissonant chord, and the manuscript, and the judge, you know, they played that chord, and he looks around, and they started playing, and he's flipping pages. Finally closes up the score and just kind of leans back. And I told the kids before they went, I said, you're either going to get a 5 or a 1. There's not going to be any in between. And they got a 1. You know, the guy was very open. But anyway, the point is this, that I've always been a champion for new music. So I've always programmed new music. I might have been one of the first people in the Big Ten with the 3rd band to do the Pittsburgh Overture. Commissioned lots of pieces, but I love standard works. You name a Granger piece that I don't like, I like everything Granger does. I love the wholes. I love the standard works. I think they have to be a part of our programming. How does things get? But I love Doherty. I love Bells for Stokowski. You know, I love the challenges of some of the new Mackey stuff, or the Stephen Bryant things, or John Newman, or what have you. There's a lot of terrific young composers in Japan that are writing some pretty special music right now, and it doesn't sound Japanese. You know, that's the thing that's really interesting. But I think that for me, I still love getting a brand new score. I just did one with the brass choir from Avon High School. The director there is one of my former students, and he said, would you do this number? And I said, yeah, I'm happy to conduct. What would you want me to conduct? He said, well, I don't have the music yet. We've commissioned it. And so I said, well, can you tell me anything about it? He says, I don't know. I haven't heard it either. I haven't seen the score. So finally, literally about 10 days ago, I got the score and the recording. It was written for junior high brass choir and electronic soundtrack. It's called An Old Song for the New World, and it's based on the New World Symphony. And the soundtrack is fantastic. Any junior high group could play this. But I thought, this is really cool. I love getting that score, and in 10 days, you know, going through it. So I love the challenge of taking a new score, and I challenge my students, and I challenge directors today. I get really tired when I hear a director say, he said, well, I told my kids to go to the website or YouTube, and I want them to listen to this piece, and then we're going to vote on whether we want to do that piece or not. What? I mean, that's a great idea. I love that kids can go and hear the music. But I want to challenge teachers and young directors. I said, what do you do? What's your process when you get a new score that you've never seen and you've never heard? What do you do with it? I love that aspect of taking a new piece that I've never heard, never seen, and then opening the score, putting my stamp on it. And I think that there's not enough of that going on in our public schools with our directors today. And I hope that you encourage that. I think there's a special process in really absorbing something, taking it internally and learning the score. But there's so many great pieces that I've enjoyed doing. David Maslanka, great friend. His son played euphonium for me. You know, I just saw David. I love his music. I think there's an inherent challenge to what he does and how he goes about doing it. And I remember we did the sax concerto right before I retired with Otis Murphy. And when I heard the sax concerto the first time, I thought, yeah, I'm not sure. And whenever I say that, that's when I really want to study the score. And Otis had heard it. And when we decided to do a piece, I said, Otis, let's look at the Maslanka. And we both looked at it and we said, okay, we're going to take it on. 42 minutes of music. Ended the concert with it. It ends, it just fades away to nothing. After 45 minutes, it goes away to nothing. Last number on the concert. What are you going to play after that? You know, Freelance March? Okay. So anyway, that might be okay. But so we took it on. I want to tell you, I still have students who are in that band that talked to me about that performance, because we all had chills going up and down our spines. And it got to the end of that performance. Now, this is Indiana, where they have, 1,000 performances a year, blah, 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 and absolute dead silence. And I looked at Otis, and he looked at me, and I thought, are they going to clap? Next thing we knew, they were on their feet. But it was deciding that there was something inherent about that score that I had to discover, that we had to discover together. Didn't hurt that David was in the audience, and you wanted to do it well for him. But I champion new music. I champion traditional music, our great standards. And the things that we're hearing now as new music, we have to keep doing those. We can't play them once and put them away if we want them to become standards. If we want Bells for Stokowski to become a standard, we can't just play it once and put it away. That has to keep coming back again. And I could go on other pieces as well. But I love the challenge of taking on a new score, even at my age. At 55, I still feel really good about it. Did I answer your question? I really, but Percy Granger, I still love doing Lincolnshire Posey. I'll do that anytime, any place. I've done it many times. I've studied it. Another piece that I'll tell you about, the first time I heard Emblems of Aaron Copland was at the Midwest Clinic, played by the Parma Senior High School Band the year after it was published. This is a high school. And I thought it was the worst thing I'd ever heard. I thought, this is not the Copland I know. So when I got to Indiana many years later, I thought, I need to do Copland. I need to find out about that piece. And I played it. It's okay. Several years later, I brought it back again, restudied it. It's become one of my favorite Copland pieces, because I think I didn't understand it. I think many times teachers don't understand it, directors don't understand it. I can help them understand it. So, 40 years after the first performance at the Midwest Clinic, in 2006, I brought the Musashino group here. We opened the concert with Emblems. It had not been played at the Midwest Clinic in 40 years. One of the greatest compliments I had after that concert was Jim Croft coming up and saying, I think I know now how I should do Emblems. To me, that's one of the best compliments anyone could get. But it took me a while to come to that realization of what that piece, and that's what we have to do. We can't just kind of stuff it away, come back to it. When you take a composer like Copland or Granger or whoever you want to mention, and you're not sure of the piece, you better go back and reinvestigate it again and find out what the piece is really all about before you make those kind of decisions that you don't ever want to do it again.
Well, sir, I think we're out of time.
No. Any other final thoughts, questions?
Thank you so much for doing this.
I just want to say that I appreciate where you all are. I was there. We were there. I wouldn't change anything. I loved being a grad student. I loved the challenge, and I love the challenge of teaching at every level. I still love teaching at every level, and I want you to enjoy your careers, that wherever your careers take you, and that when I get to hear your future groups play at the CBDNA, when you're 20 years or so, or 10 years, whatever down the line, I want to be sitting there and listening to your groups play. And you know what? I'm sure that I'm going to be there, because I have no intention of dying anytime soon. Have a great time, everybody.